would happen if an industrial designer had a go at making prosthetic legs, things that are beautiful but don't try to look man-made, but that also don't neglect the aesthetics. My background is originally from a machine shop. You know, I like making stuff with my hands. Then also I have a degree in industrial design, so my other love is really making beautiful products of all kinds. I worked at Apple back in '93, and once you go through the Apple world, you've really drank the Kool-Aid. You know, from that day forward, you really can't do anything that you're not absolutely obsessively proud of. I had my first exposure to 3D printing 20 years ago, and we probably created some of the first products ever created, three-dimensionally printed. Happened to run into this guy, Ken Trauner, and he was an orthopedic surgeon, but he has a nose for innovation. And so we explored all the different things you could do. We realized that we've really unlocked the door for a lot of problems that orthopedic surgeons have. The person who comes to us, they already have a prosthetic leg that's working. And it looks like it was created by a bunch of engineers, because it was created by a bunch of engineers. So we said, okay, let's just see what we can do. We three-dimensionally scanned the body, modified things on the computer, 3D printed the results, and realized, wait, we've got something here. We can actually take it and run with it. We started, I think, with 3 people just to test the concept out. And this woman, Deborah, she lost her leg in a motorcycle crash. And we created this fairing for her, and the whole idea was just how beautiful can we make it? Polished metal, 3-dimensionally printed lace-like pattern, really capturing the really beautiful calves that she had. And all of a sudden she started sending me texts about people who would stop her in the grocery store and tell her what a cool leg she had. And she was wearing skirts that she hadn't worn to opera at the symphony out in public so that she could actually show what she had. We were working with Chad, was another guy, lost his leg to cancer. And we created this cool leg for him, one for playing soccer, he's a competitive soccer player. We created another just for wearing around town. And when we put it on him, I think 2.5, maybe 3 years ago or something, he reached down and felt this leg and he kind of paused. And he said, wow, I haven't felt that shape in 8 years. And that was this amazing thing, because it wasn't just that we're creating something that looks cool, we're recreating a sense of self. And I think there's this huge opportunity to turn those into not just something that is a engineering artifact that happens to surround the body and augment functionality, but really create something that connects to the person, not just in that tactile, physical way, but emotionally. It kind of changed these people's lives, and it changed the way they got through every day.
Hi, I'm Deborah Bevilacqua. I'm a below-knee amputee. I lost my leg 11 years ago in a motorcycle accident. Before that, I was always very athletic and doing a lot of running, and it was really important for me to immediately get right back into that. And today I'm an athlete. I do CrossFit and swim competitively and do lots of triathlons. Not having another calf and trying to wear like skinny jeans or knee-high boots or anything where you're going to see that shape is really difficult. So in order to pull that off, because I want to wear those things, I made my own sort of foam duct tape leg that fills in the shape so that I can wear my boots, because otherwise the boots just fall down. I first saw UNYQ through a lot of my athlete friends, and then I saw somebody wearing a UNYQ cover, and I immediately ran up to them and asked them a million questions. And as soon as I got home, I got on the internet and just started live chatting with somebody from UNYQ. After I decided which cover I wanted, I realized that I could go through insurance to have them cover a portion of it and use my flexible spending account. And that was a surprise to me. I didn't know that that was even an option. I like pretty things. I'm an artist. I love to be surrounded by beautiful things. I like to look at beauty, enjoy beauty. It's just an important thing to me. I like things to be aesthetically pleasing, you know, in my room, my car, my job, everything that I surround myself with. I just like to look at pretty things. And so I want to be pretty, and I want my leg to be pretty.
Super happy to have you guys here, both Scott and Deborah. We wanted to do this for a long time, Scott, amazing designer. We met in 2010, and back then you were working together, coming from Apple. You had created bespoke innovations, and you and Deborah were kind of shattering through this wall, this mental wall that we have in our industry, which is that you should really not show off with your prosthetic leg. Just like you normally show off with your eyewear, that was kind of like a taboo back in the days. And you started a movement. You as a designer, inventor, serial entrepreneur, together with Deborah, artist, obviously very courageous one, dared going on and having these amazing photo shoots and start bespoke innovations. And we at UNYQ, we acquired then the IP from 3D Systems that had acquired bespoke back in 2012. We started in 2014, and the rest is history. It's a story I've always wanted to share, and here we are. Very excited about having you guys. Thank you for joining me, and let's hope Facebook allows us to stay here on for a while to talk about your background, and as well maybe more the future, because I know you guys are always forward thinking, and I'm curious to hear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, back in the day, it seemed that the prosthetic limb was a canvas that nobody had painted on. Here, it had all the ingredients of something interesting. It had human form, it had sensuality and individuality and expression that wasn't being taken advantage of. It was simply the byproduct of an engineer making a load-bearing structure that's somewhat reflective of the human skeletal system. And they kind of left it at that. And it seemed that, yeah, this was a half-finished project. And it took an industrial designer or an artist or somebody with a background very different from, but very complementary to, an engineer in order to complete the story.
So what brought you two together, Deborah? I think you might be on mute. Yeah, there you go.
I believe I was at an appointment at my prosthetist office, San Francisco Orthotics and Prosthetics. I think they told me, but they were always saying, you know, somebody needs you to try out this product, or somebody needs an amputee to, you know, be in a commercial. There were all these great opportunities there. And that's how I learned about Scott. So of course I said yes to everything, because I always wanted this to progress, because I too thought that this was an unfinished project and needed a lot of help. So I jumped on that opportunity.
Yeah, I can throw some images of some of the first ideas that we had.
Please.
Oh, exciting.
Yeah, so we, let's see. Can you see this?
Yes.
Okay, so this is in South Park, where we had our first photo shoot, and we really wanted to capture a lot of Deborah's personality. She was a motorcycle rider, and so we wanted to capture some of the flavor of motorcycle in one of the legs. And then when we started working with Deborah, it was great to look at how could this be something that was a hybrid of sculpture, of the human form, of fashion, of design, but also of engineering. These things had to be strong and they had to endure. And we showed prosthetists, and they didn't know quite what to make of it. This was a guy who was really excited to have essentially a facsimile of his leg back, but something that embodied his personality, because this captured his motorcycle love. Or Chad Crittenden here, awesome guy, and he was hoping to get back into soccer. So we printed a sport leg and a daily walking around town leg for him. Uwe here really missed his tattoos, so we printed the tattoos back on his leg, both in the polymer and on the leather. This guy, he kept wearing herringbone tweed, and we looked at him, and that was kind of his personality, so we captured the herringbone tweed in his leg. This guy is a veteran from Afghanistan, very proud of his muscles, very sculpted guy, bodybuilder. So we wanted to capture that musculature. This guy, we wanted to make it look like three-dimensional tattoos floating in space. So as though you took the person away and left the tattoo there, left the ink. Boston Marathon bombing victim. We just wanted to make her feel beautiful again, because she just wasn't very happy about having lost her leg in the bombing. An actress in Hollywood asked if we could do fishnet stockings. So we made three-dimensional fishnet stockings. But the real goal was to one day develop legs that could be applicable for the developing countries. And the reason for that is that there will never be enough prosthetic limbs or enough doctors who are capable of creating a prosthetic limb for the many people around the world who really need them. Sometimes the most, because in these sometimes agrarian societies or not fully industrialized societies, a leg is a very important thing for mobility and for commerce and for societal acceptance. So we wanted to come up with a process where we could create these without the use of a doctor. We never achieved that. This was many years of research into this. But the idea was that you could 3D scan anybody with a handheld smartphone, send the data up to the cloud. The data would then create a leg and it would be printed and sent to the person. So that's still an ambition. We still hope that one day somebody will take that and run with it and make it happen. And that will be a world changer when that does. The process that we did use, though, was the 3D scan somebody, run it through an algorithm to create a symmetric leg, and then print one. And you get a lot of benefits from it. It's printed locally, it's curbside recyclable, dishwasher safe, and you can create something that captures the person's personality as well as the functionality and take some of the stigma away. But some of the things we learned in retrospect, it's hard to do it without human touch. There's only so much you can automate. We had trouble making a business model of it because of the amount of man hours per unit that we created. Insurance wasn't willing to cover it. Durability is a constant challenge because it's going to be banged around just like the human body is. And the adjustability and the modularity were always challenges. Eythor solved a lot of these with UNYQ, picking up and evolving the design farther than we had with the fairings that they created. And so, but this, the all-in-one 3D printed leg, it's still an ongoing task. And I hope somebody is able to make it happen. It's there for the taking. The world needs it. And it needs some smart people working on it.
Beautiful. Oh, amazing. And but how did you two connect on this? I know you both live obviously in the Bay Area, and I mean, Deborah, you are an artist, so I'm sure you were always into beautiful things and creating beautiful things. And I mean, I must have made you really frustrated having to deal with the prosthetics of the past.
Yes, it was frustrating. I was always looking for opportunities, and you could find them at the prosthetist office because people were always coming there to find amputees for certain things. And that's how I found Scott. He needed some models, and I, of course, volunteered immediately. And that began that story, and it is a great story. And it did change my life, definitely. Because I was always hiding my prosthetic. It was like, how could I pretend to be a completely normal person with no limp and people would never know? And people I knew for an entire year never knew that I had a prosthetic because I was hiding it so well. But then I met Scott, and it was like, that was just all over. It was like, how can I make everybody see this and show it off? So yeah, life-changing.
And I mean, it was not just 3D printing or design, and it was also, I mean, fashion. It was the photos you were making were something also completely new.
Those are beautiful photos, yeah.
Yeah, you didn't think you were going to be turned into a fashion model all of a sudden.
Yeah.
But that was the whole idea. We did a couple legs where we wanted to, I'll share the screen for this. We wanted to really play up the person and make them into something totally different. This was a concept I did after teaching. I wanted to see, how can you make something that really looks like almost wearing a Ducati, something that accentuated the body, like that you treat a prosthetic limb as jewelry. And this was a guy, John Siciliano, an actor in Hollywood. And when we did this photo shoot, his wife came down, or his girlfriend came down, and she looked at it and she kind of said aloud, she said, well, I like your right leg better than your left leg now. And we all kind of had a laugh at that. And he said, yeah, actually, can you make two of them? And I said, well, you don't want to lose your left leg now. That makes things tough. But we joked about that. But the message was certainly there that this was not a thing to hide. This was a thing to show. And we walked around LA a little bit and people were jealous. You could see the jealousy in their eyes of, here's this really amazing thing that this guy has. And that was that changed things. That suggested that we're onto something because we could translate the societal perception of what it means to be an amputee. I got to know Amy Mullins in the process, and she's also a lovely person, a runner, a model, and an intellect as well. And her thing was to say, okay, a prosthetic limb doesn't mean disabled, certainly. It means you have unique capability and unique options. And so that was something that she captured certainly in running and her athletics, along with like Oscar Pistorius. And we wanted to really say, okay, we can also capture that aesthetically in the beauty of making the person into the work of art that they should be.
Yeah. But then what got you coming out of Apple?
So I worked at Apple in the early 90s and then consulted back to them for years and designed a lot of products through the 90s and consulted for a lot of companies around the Bay Area. The thing that I found was interesting is as an industrial designer, your goal is to make as many products as identical as possible. So if you're making a smartphone, you want everyone that comes off the assembly line to be absolutely identical to the next one. And that is the metric of success. There is something fairly unsatisfying for me about that because you're creating for the human species. You're not creating for a person. And that with 3D printing and some of the new technology with generative modeling and algorithmic modeling and 3D scanning, you can take some of these technologies and start thinking about creating a product for a person as if it was handcrafted, although it's digital. So it's a digital crafted process. So it's a hybridization of the process of pre-industrial times and state of the art. And I think there's something fascinating about that. There are people now creating jewelry. Invisalign is doing this with teeth. There are 3D printed bicycle saddles and 3D printed shoes that are accustomed to the body. I think this is an exciting turn that technology is taking where products aren't necessarily made for humans. They are made for individuals. And we're going to see that more and more now. I think most immediately with shoes, 3D printed shoes are going to be the norm, certainly. And they will be based on an individual and the needs of that individual. And that will be a game changer. And then I think we'll see a lot. One of the next ones too is helmets. Sport helmets very soon, as in within the next year or so, will be 3D printed based on a scan of the head, and they will absorb impact far better than any other helmet. Soldier helmets, military helmets, same deal. So we're seeing this age that we've been talking about for 30 years finally really kick into high gear. The idea of mass customization and printing a specific device for a specific need.
What about 3D printed feet?
That's something that I tried to do. If I can get a funder, an investor, and if I can get a sales channel, then that's there to be had, because I think that's the opportunity that hasn't been met yet. We had business model challenges more than we had technology challenges. And that's what kills me, because we could do so much more with the technology than we could, because simply the business model is challenging. There aren't enough amputees in the world to make an investor really pay a great deal of attention. We got lucky with our first round of investors, but it was very hard because they are looking for massive returns. They're looking for Facebook scaling. And when you're talking about, no, we are designing something that is something the world needs. It is a vital product for human beings, but we aren't going to scale like Facebook. Then investors kind of shy away. They're like, thank you, but we're looking for making money, not for making everyone feel good. And so it was very hard to deal with investors that way to get the next rounds of funding.
That's where you sold to 3D Systems. And I guess, like Deborah, you mentioned the foot. I mean, somebody who was frustrated about prosthetics before, I mean, what makes you, I mean, beyond the foot, I mean, frustrated today? I mean, what would you like to see from beyond that? What is your future vision?
I think the most frustrating part is just getting a good fit with your prosthetic. For me, because my limb is so short, it's a lot harder to do. So it took like over a year to get my last leg, and still it always kind of ends in a compromise. Like, what do you really need right now? Like, give something up. Do you want to be able to sit, stand, move, be comfortable in your car? You have to address your needs and then decide what you're willing to give up on that particular leg, because we can't have a running leg. Insurance pays for one leg, so you don't get to choose a running leg, a CrossFit leg, a shower leg, a just being comfortable everyday leg, a walking leg. But you kind of need all those things for different reasons. Yeah. But so that's the most frustrating part. But what makes it nice is to be able to put a nice, pretty cover on it that, that just makes you feel better and forget about all those other things.
Yeah.
But yeah.
The comfort has been a long quest.
Yeah. Also, the shape of the fairing, you can't wear boots if you don't have that shape. They just fall down. So your pants kind of, when they blow in the wind, you've got like a flat leg. So it gives you that shape, and it just to look down and see that shape or know that you have that calf, it just makes you feel more complete. And that feels really good too.
Well, we have a lot ahead of us still. It's obvious, and it's hard to. It's mimicking the body and that work that somebody created and recreate that. It's hard, and but it's exciting that the technology is getting better, and and users are more like you now, thinking more like you, and so there is definitely much more push. And what I find also is that clinicians are obviously today much more digitally minded, and even in these times, COVID times, I feel like digital revolution is being fast forwarded, and we see people much more using obviously what we are on here, and sometimes with challenges, but it is definitely helping. I see, for instance, in terms of spreading the message, we can reach clinicians and people like never before, and they are, what we see typically is that the older generation says, it's maybe not something on me, but I can see my younger guys, they are all over it. And so that's a big difference from 10 years ago.
Yeah, definitely.
There's another detail with when you go digital on some of these that isn't often played up enough, which is that a lot of knowledge goes away every time a prosthetist retires. This is a very handcrafted skill. It's like jewelry or sculpture. It is the artist that a prosthetist is. When it is a handcrafted process, when you make it a digital process, for example, some of the work we're doing with scoliosis, then every doctor's knowledge can be passed on, because the entire process can, as a digital process, can be analyzed and understood and communicated to other doctors throughout the world instantly. And so the knowledge isn't encapsulated in the person, it's a cumulative knowledge. And that's a vital step of any technology, is to be able to build on the knowledge instead of encapsulating it and focusing it on one person. So that works with scoliosis bracing, which is something that we've all worked on quite a bit. And I think that is a vital area to focus on. Also AFOs for foot drop, spinal muscle atrophy. The work, I did a lot of work with this part, which is a ligament, post-operative stabilization for a ligament tear that I had in my arm.
Remember,
the knowledge of this can be built on once it's a digital process, and that algorithm can be uploaded to the cloud so that anybody can then 3D print a post-operative stabilization brace uniquely for themselves. That you can't do with a hand-to-hand process where each doctor has their knowledge, and when they retire, it all goes away. So there are opportunities to be had where medical needs and human needs and design opportunities all coalesce. And that is, I think, the great unmet opportunity that will be fleshed out over the coming years.
You worked on more things than just, and your passion is in much more areas. Maybe do you have something to share with us?
Yeah, I can show you some of the other areas that we've worked on. When I was at 3D Systems, our task was really to take 3D printing out on the open road and show what it can do. So we had, for example, one of our patients was a girl who fell off a swing. She happened to be the daughter of one of our investors, which was very fortunate for us because they were willing to let her experiment with us. So we cast her arm essentially with let's get this down here. We cast her arm essentially with the first ever 3D printed fracture brace. And that was based on a scan of her arm. That is dishwasher safe, which is important because once her arm started to set, she could alternate between this one and the other one and throw one in the dishwasher. So she had a very clean, sterile brace. Then these two girls, 1-year-old and 3-year-old, fell down the stairs and both broke their tibias. So we did the same thing. These were, I think, patient number 2 and 3 of humans ever treated with fracture stabilization braces that were printed. They were able to go to the beach, get sandy, and then jump in the bathtub and wash off. You can't do that with a normal cast. But there's a word of warning with this. I see a lot of these really cool ideas coming out of universities and students and research centers, and people aren't considering the dangers of this process too. All of these braces that I show here would cause agony and possibly long-term damage to the person if they were actually implemented beyond concept phase, because they aren't considering the blood flow, the bony prominences, musculature expansion and contraction, muscle atrophy, all the things that are very, very important with the process. And I didn't discover it until I tore a ligament in my wrist. And we went through a process of printing the inside, scanning it, mapping the geometry, mapping bony prominences. And we came up with this we called the bikini, which was as minimal as you can possibly get to stabilize the bone, or to stabilize the hand against the forearm. And you can see the scars right there on my arm. This is an important approach to take while you are looking at postoperative stabilization, because if you miss this one, you miss not only all the dividends of 3D printing a cast, but you can also really harm the person. So with this one, I was able to scuba dive and take showers, get sunlight on the arm. It was a great way to recover. My doctor accepted that this was probably the best postoperative stabilization that a human being has ever received in history. And I agree, it was a very comfortable, very easy way to go through 4 months of fracture stabilization or bone stabilization. But these are the important considerations: blood flow, nerve endings, and bony prominences. And if those are missed, it gets bad fast. We looked into the future at 3D Systems of where this could be. Could you print directly on the body? Yes, you certainly could. This was a concept we did, but this is not too far-fetched from reality. We also looked at carpal tunnel, which a lot of the data people of the Bay Area certainly have from repetitive stress. We looked at what can you do to solve that, again, with a custom 3D printed approach. And we looked at scoliosis, as you and I have talked about over the years, how to treat the psychology of scoliosis, because it mainly affects girls who are prepubescent and peripubescent. So it is an emotional consideration as well as the biomechanical one. So we really focused on, can you come up with a design that complements the girl, makes her want to wear it, makes her feel beautiful wearing it, and not like a medical byproduct. So the patterning was a very important part. We worked with my wife, who's a designer, and we worked with will.i.am, the artist. We also worked on braces like this, which are potentially allowing the person to flex and live a very normal life with a very comfortable ventilated brace, but also have their spine corrected while they're wearing it. We didn't achieve the final tested results on this, but my hunch is that this is a solution to the discomfort of wearing a brace. But the last point there, the psychology of the design is often the most important medical consideration, because when girls decide that they just don't like to wear their brace, you can't get them to wear it. You can't get a 10-year-old girl to do something she's determined not to do. So the psychology of it was the most important part, to make her feel beautiful. And if she did, she wore the brace. And if she wore the brace, she would recover. And one of the last projects we did that I can show here, something that was a very exciting one because it was working with Exobionics, who is an exciting company. You were the CEO at the time. And we looked at the goal of Exobionics is to eventually replace the wheelchair with a walking exoskeleton. And this is an exciting, wild ride of a company and a concept. And we talked to this woman, Amanda Boxtel, and we asked her, what would she want? What would her ultimate powered exoskeleton be? And she said she doesn't want a robot. She wants a second skin. She wants an intelligent, powered skin. So we said, well, how about something like this? She said, yeah, that's what I want. Can you make that? And I said, no, I have no idea how. But we explored all kinds of concepts. And we looked at 3D printing chainmail, which we had done a lot of. This is a bag that we did with Will.i.am. That is his iPad bag. That was 3D printed chainmail with nickel plating. And we looked at swarmed robotics, swarming robots. And we threw out this idea of how about a powered, intelligent exoskin? The concept is there. We prototype parts of it, but that is something that the next generation is going to have to do because that's beyond what we can do. This is us 3D scanning Amanda Boxtel, sitting, standing, creating a Lofstrand crutch, and then creating parts that complement her body, not only aesthetically, but that really connect her to that exoskeletal robot. Because in this case, the conformation of the body against that robot has everything to do with the quality of how that robot works. And just to add to it, we added this 3D printed sterling silver jewelry.
Oh, nice.
That just said, it's not just a robot. Yeah, it's not just a robot. It's a piece of art. And so there you can see where the robot is and where the interstitial parts that connect robot to body are. And so here in 2013, wow, 7 years ago, we flew this out to Budapest and we assembled it that night in a hotel. That really frightened the room service because in Budapest, they aren't used to seeing walking exoskeletal robots in the hallway. And we got her to wear it and got her up on stage at a Singularity event in front of the government of the country. And she got up and walked across the stage in this. Now, the biomechanics of it is all done by Exobionics, and it's amazing what they've been able to achieve. But connecting her body into that robot, that's a pretty exciting thing to be able to do and to take part in.
Great. I mean, watching Amanda walking there, I mean, you took it basically to the next level beyond where I left it. I think it was like 1 year after, and I mean, it was. I remember back in 2010 when we were finalizing that exoskeleton, and I was saying to the team, we have to make it look good.
Yeah.
And I used to refer to it as the jeans of the future. I mean, here we are, you know, literally in the city that invented the jeans, San Francisco. So we have to follow in that footstep, and we have to make it so that if people are going to use this on a day-to-day basis, it just has to look good.
It can't feel like
I never thought about
robot.
personalization. You came in and then added the personalization on the top of that.
Yeah.
And it's interesting now that we are seeing more and more requests, because now at these times, 10 years later, exoskeletons and braces, they call them e-braces or so on, have been introduced by larger companies now. It's become much more a common product for stroke survivors and others. And they are coming now to us and saying, okay, can we add a cover on the top of it to make it look better? Not for personalization, which is something that should of course be done to make it even more comfortable and compatible. But it's people just want to look to begin with, and so.
And the design is not about simply being skin deep as well, as you mentioned. It's really that the design has to come from the inside out. Everything about the product has to be designed. If it's simply a veneer that you put around the outside, that's not quite there. It has to be that this reflects the human, it captures their personality and their spirit. It also really, it really exemplifies what the product can be. When you look at that perfect motorcycle, it's not a machine with a pretty skin around it. It's beautiful at every component. It's well designed, it's well thought out. The ergonomics, the human factors, the mechanics, everything about it is perfectly done. And whether it's a prosthetic limb or an exoskeletal robot, it has to be considered at that level of detail if it's going to be not only a market success, but really if it's going to capture the spirit of the person and make them feel like, yeah, this is welcomed in my life. This is a part of who I am. It has to exude that. It has to communicate that at every molecule of the product. And that's the challenge. We certainly tried to hit that at Apple, but every product is capable of functioning at that level, of that level of perfection and design.
Yeah. Deborah, I see that you have things there behind you. You still wear the covers, right?
Have a cover on.
Cool. Is that the one we had at the Fashion Week in San Francisco?
It was like
okay.
I can't really turn my leg
Very
that way.
nice.
Kind of like a space theme. Everyone kind of had this silver space thing going on. But I do have my original Scott Summit, or one of them.
Beautiful.
Wow, that's a long time ago.
I
Yeah.
love things so much. It just doesn't fit, because they are custom made. They fit
Yes.
the aesthetic that you have. And I got a new foot and a new pylon, and then, it just doesn't fit in there anymore. But it's my most favorite thing, and it has.
And that was the challenge that we faced. Yeah, it's very hard to make it universal. Yeah.
Because when you get a new leg made, the prosthetist just uses all different parts from all over the place, and everything changes. So yeah, that is a challenge. Like, how do you get to wear the same fairing over and over again? Yeah. And then I had this little shorty one when I had this really
I remember that one.
leg where the socket like stuck out. So like short little summertime pink one. And this was like my original first one from together.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was just black and shiny.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
First unique cover.
This is one of our really first ones.
Yeah, like
first 2015 or something.
First generation. And then of course the unique box was
came always in those nice boxes.
Really
yeah. Very nice, very nice.
I have some more covers, but a lot of them are just half parts because I lose a lot of them hiking and doing crazy things outdoors. So
you had some crazy story about one of their hike trips where you lost it.
Just recently I lost the back of one of my fairings to Lake Tahoe. At the top of the mountain, crossing a waterfall, like a log and a waterfall, and my leg got stuck and it just whisked away down the waterfall. I imagine, Scott, you might find it in Lake Tahoe, maybe for me.
I'll keep an eye out.
Or like maybe it's part of a beaver dam somewhere. But that happened. Then in Hawaii, my kayak tipped over in a sea cave and my entire leg fell 30 feet to the bottom of the cave. And one of the guides, amazing guy, he free dove, and this took a while, and he actually got my leg back, fairing and all. That was amazing. Yeah, so.
There were some very surprised fish that day.
That was really scary.
That's a good test.
But I was very happy that the fairing didn't pop off, and it was all intact and got the whole thing back. So And now when I go
Mm.
hiking, I just put these little bands around my wrist. I just put it around my leg. So
Yeah.
So I think one day, maybe not too far, there's a new process called transcutaneous osseointegration, but the idea that a prosthetic leg won't be something that you attach by way of a squishy socket to your residual limb, but instead it will integrate directly into your skeletal system. That the skeleton will have a metal mount structure that comes through the skin, attached directly to the bone on the inside. And that's always been the promise. It will happen. It's just a matter of when and how. But when that day comes, it'll be a new day for prosthetic limbs in general. You'll be able to create something on a very different level. And the level of sophistication you'll be capable of will be entirely different. And I think that that's where the companies that are designing in advance for this day are going to really have the opportunity to shape what the generation 2, the prosthetic limb 2.0 will be, because it will be very different in every way from the prosthetic limb 1.0 that we currently live with. And that's where I think the designers, the technology, the forward thinkers, that's where I think the real opportunity lies ahead.
yes, I did meet someone with a metal pin connected to their bone, coming out of their leg. And I didn't really get
Becoming, it is finally starting to emerge as a product. And the breakthrough has been because FDA approved this technology a couple of years ago,
Yep.
which has really opened up and paved the way for that. So we are seeing now around 4 companies that are pushing that, and we are collaborating at UNYQ with them. And I can show you, Scott, sometimes some pictures, but osteointegration, and there's a lot of opportunity there, and it's still early days. It's still expensive technology, and you need to have a pretty strong bone structure to be able to tolerate it. But it's finally coming, at least for those who qualify for that.
Yeah.
But guys, I think it's good to end on those notes, and just want to thank you to have participated here. And we went through at least 3-4 times where we had to kind of break through the wall here and get on Facebook and finish this off, and we did it.
All good.
So thank you, and have a whole weekend.
Thank you.
And you. Very good to see both of you again, and hope to see you soon.
Okay.
Great to listen to you guys talk too. Be part of this.
All right.
Thank
Seeing you both again.
Signing off.
you. Have a nice weekend.
Soon again. Okay, bye-bye.